listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast, episode 41.
We want to try to have one foot in the spiritual and one foot grounded in reality, and then lean harder on the opposite foot when things get tough.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
There's so many reasons to want to spend an hour with Kristoffer Carter, who tells us we should call him KC, from his work in mindfulness called The Pause, to his work at the Good Life Project with Jonathan Fields. But I'm going to ask him to tell us all about the things that are important to him. Welcome to the show today, KC.
Hey, it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me, Angie.
Thank you for making time. Are you in Akron, Ohio today?
Beautiful Akron, Ohio, the rubber capital of the world, yes.
And we hope to get you out here to San Diego sometime soon.
Yeah, I'll be there the whole month of December in Encinitas, and I can't wait. I'm very spiritually drawn to that part of the world, for sure.
As many of us. Beautiful spot.
For sure. Yeah, I'm spending I have a sabbatical from work in December, and I'm bringing my family out to live in a carriage house across the street from the Self-Realization Fellowship Gardens in Encinitas, which is everything to me right now, to be able to spend a month with my family. You mentioned things that are important to me. I guess I'll segue straight into it.
Please.
Family and God and Guru, spending time around the temples and the teachings, and great food, lots of sun, and no technology for the month of December, giving it all up. So yeah, looking forward to all that. Working my butt off this year to end up in Encinitas.
We're so lucky here in San Diego. For those of you who live here and those of you who don't, like, we have the beach and Surfer Kingdom and the Self-Realization Center, and then one of the coolest towns ever with lots of great restaurants and great people, that sometimes I think we overlook SRF and don't spend enough time over there. So wonderful that you're going to be here.
Yeah, I think that Yogananda was, when one of his disciples bought him that property and built it for him while he was over in India in the 40s, or no, the 30s, 36. When he came home and found that ashram had been built, that thing became kind of the center of that colony that really helped build out Encinitas. So it has that kind of spiritual epicenter to it. I'm not saying that there's not plenty of other awesome spiritual stuff going on out there, but I'd say Yogananda's work is definitely a cornerstone of that community.
Wait, you and I met last January, and I had researched some of your work then, but getting ready to talk to you today, I started looking a little deeper at your work. You do so many things.
Yeah. It depends how you look at it. Like my whole trip is integration, how to integrate a great many things into, one unified whole. And being an Enneagram number 7, Susan Piver, who I know you interviewed recently, she really broke my head wide open to the Enneagram. And as I realized I was always a hardcore 7, taking on a great many things, my path towards integration is really, it really encapsulates everything from my spirituality to my work with companies. So like when people say, like, oh, you do a great many things, the kid in me was always, oh, look at all the things I could do. I mean, I might have a pair of cymbals between my knees and a bass drum on my back and a one-man band kind of thing going on. But the reality is what I'm trying to do or trying to put out there is that I'm only trying to work on being present and trying to be, as I jokingly say, the best Chrissy I can be because, what else is there? Life can get stressful when there's too many things. But yeah, I guess on paper I do a lot of different things.
But what I love about that is it's perfectly okay. Like we've been, or at least I've been in the school, and many people that I talk to in my practice have been in the thought process that we have to pick just one side of ourselves, and that's what we have to do with our lives and our careers, and the world's really changing in that aspect.
I find the more and more I get into my work is that I never forced myself to choose between family, between being a professional musician at times or becoming a yogi, working in corporate, because I was silly enough to believe, I wasn't silly enough to believe that I could have it all per se and do all those things remarkably well. I mean, ask my wife, I'm fully transparent that I'm not, perfect at any of those things, but I was raised, my grandfather was a big influence, and he taught me that, the value of pursuing mastery. And I'm not saying that I achieved mastery in those areas, but I have my brushes, and I think that the more I get into my work, I'm very grateful that I never chose, because I somehow know how to do, you're a podcaster, so I know how to edit audio and produce video and, get a site online in minutes. And so I think by that not forcing myself to choose, I've been able to push pretty boldly into this new digital economy where we, last time I checked, having a lot of different skills isn't a bad thing. It's at times I wish I would have specialized in certain areas, but I'm forced to be a quick study.
Mm-hmm. People say to me all the time, like, "Oh my goodness, I have no idea. Like, you do so many things too. Like, you've done that in your past, and you've done that, and you've done that, and you've done that, and I have specialized, but it didn't really suit me. Like I function better when I'm doing all of the things that I love, and that's a variety of things that really feeds me. I want to go back to what you said about the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. A couple years ago, I was sitting in an unconference meeting next to Dan Siegel at Google, and he was talking about the Enneagram and the importance of it in understanding ourselves and our personalities, and how he had written a paper about it and submitted it to some psychological journals, and it hadn't been accepted.
Not shocking.
But right. So, but there's probably millions of people that have never heard of the Enneagram. So let's just talk about that for a couple minutes.
Yeah, Susan Piver was on the staff for Good Life Project Immersion when I came through the program in 2012, and we ended up in Mexico getting our minds blown by the amazing Susan Piver, who I now consider a good friend and teacher and mentor in some ways. And she decided to speak that day, not about, all the other amazing things she knows about, but specifically about the Enneagram. And her origin story for the Enneagram is fascinating, because it was basically downloaded into human consciousness. No, it doesn't have a very clear source. It just kind of showed up one day, and she talked about the mysticism around that. But yeah, it's that 9-point system that's kind of like a personality profile on steroids, because I've done all of them. I pursue what I call ruthless self-knowledge, and this is something I teach in my courses, is that all of it is valid. From I know my numerology, my astrology, my MBTI, my DIA strength, StrengthsFinder, Enneagram. I love all of it, and I think it all informs us in ways that we could, as you said, show up as the full expression of yourself in the world. It pays to know yourself. But the Enneagram, to me, is just, it's more three-dimensional. It becomes a lens by which you can see the world and see other people, but also it becomes a compass, and it helps you navigate certain types of people. Something that the MBTI I felt always aspired to do, but never quite got there. It's much more accepted in corporate circles, but the Enneagram is catching on pretty hardcore. I know our company is really fascinated by it, and we're starting to do and kind of require more trainings around it. But yeah, as soon as you know your number, do you know your number, Angie?
I knew it, and I do. I'm like you. I love all of those things. I drink it all up, and I've got it all written down, but I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, because what you do, the best way to find it out, there's a few different surveys you could do to find it, but when you have a master, and I consider Susan Piver a master, when she talks it down, you kind of start recognizing yourself in the descriptions, and once you know your number, you know it to your DNA level. And when she talked through the whole cycle, the 7 that I mentioned, it's the versatile enthusiast. So that's the person that's going to pick up a lot of different instruments or these different seemingly disparate talents and put them all together in interesting ways. The flip side of that is you could be very scattered and flaky. You can be you integrate towards a different number on the Enneagram scale. So 7s integrate towards a 5, and then they disintegrate towards a 1. And the 1 is a very black and white type. It's like you're either with me or against me. And when she started describing these things, it was kind of getting to another level of self-knowledge that I hadn't attained at that point, and it just blew open my head to more possibilities. So like that's why I'm just fascinated by it. And the more I read about it, the more I get into it.
And so we're talking about MBTI, and he's talking about Myers-Briggs, which it's becoming everybody knows that vernacular these days. And so what does Myers-Briggs say about you?
Not shockingly, I'm ENFP, which is the hyper extrovert, expressive, tactile, touchy-feely, lovey, whatever, hippie, love child. What's funny is my wife hasn't worked in corporate for 6 years because she's been, raising our kids, helping raise our kids, staying at home with the kids. And she is almost an opposite. Like, I think it's INTJ. So introverted, judgmental, not in a bad way judgmental, but just more thoughtful, judicial. And so the Myers-Briggs has another level of, ways to inform us, but I was like a classic extrovert on that level.
Well, I'm with you right there, ENFP as well. Probably not quite as much E. So it would be interesting to see if our Enneagrams are the same.
What's your astrology? What sign are you?
Scorpio.
Do you know what number Scorpio you are? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
No.
Because not to go down the rabbit hole of all these, but I know that I'm Virgo, and Virgo 2 is the week of the Enigma. And it's a really weird mix with being a hyper extroverted person because people they don't expect you to be clandestine about anything. You're kind of an open book until you don't want to be. But I would encourage you to figure out what that number is. And then beyond that, the numerology aspect of your actual birthday. I know I'm the day of the fanciful sovereign, which makes me Peter Pan to many people, which is very accurate if you spend any time with me. But I think all these things play a part, and they give us a little sliver, a little view into what the unique brand of crazy and magic that we're working with. And I've only benefited from, considering all of it valid. There's a lot of people that judge it and say, oh, the Enneagram's BS or that one doesn't work or whatever. I'm like, no, there's something to all of it. I don't think that any of these things would be around as long as they have been if they didn't have some, something to teach us.
I feel like I'm talking to myself a little bit here. Like I would tell this to the people that I work with about all of these tools as well. And you're a little bit further or maybe much further down that path than but you're very encouraging. And for anyone out there listening, I think Casey encourages us all to go, if you don't know something about yourself, why not figure it out, right? You can judge afterwards whether you think it's valid. But
I think that I'm easily obsessed with interesting things, and once I get on I'm like, if one self-assessment's good, why not do 8 of them? And why not put them all on one dashboard, and you could kind of look at the commonalities across all of them and really get an idea of that again is that integration aspect of my work. I'm trying to borrow from all those things to understand, who I am and how to express. And, but the more open I am to those things, the more interesting things. I mean, you live in the epicenter of it, San Diego. You become a magnet for, interesting people that have things to teach you. Alice Bandy, who we were talking about earlier, our mutual friend. When you're open to those things and you don't close yourself off and judge it as, BS or not as good as this or that, I think I've always benefited from walking into a room and expecting and hoping to learn something. And I think those surveys do a good job.
Right. Well, for me personally, I think you have to crack open to those things a little bit.
Yeah.
You're kind of living a conventional life and maybe thinking that those things are a little bit for woo-woo people, and then you open up and go, oh my gosh, I want to drink this stuff as fast as possible.
Yeah. I say if it feels weird, lean in. because there's so many people. It's so easy to make that snap judgment. And I think that I was raised, my aunt was a big spiritual influence on me, and she's a Reiki master and a Qigong medicine specialist, and she knows all sorts of different energy work. And so she planted a seed early on that there is something to the metaphysical. There's much more going on than what we see here. But my nature as a Virgo is very fact-based, science-based, like prove it, show me. And that's what drew me to the yogi path, which is, all about direct practice, direct experience. But the more I find with all that is we want to try to have one foot in the spiritual and one foot grounded in reality, and then lean harder on the opposite foot when things get tough,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
For sure. I took a picture of something when we were in Portland at Powell's bookstore that said just that, which I posted on Instagram. I'm not looking at it now, but it basically said that, hang out with all the dreamers that you can find with your head in the clouds, but keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And it just really spoke to me as well. But back to you. Let's talk about your mindfulness work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're meditating with all these people, lots of people, right?
Yeah. Every
Thursday?
Every Thursday. I have a global virtual meditation meetup called The Pause, and we use this tool called Zoom. It's an amazing video tool where you could share up to 100 cameras, believe it or not, 100 webcams in high definition. And Zoom ended up really liking my work, and they were kind enough to give me an endorsement of their product. So I used their product hand in hand with spreading consciousness. And I've always been really fascinated by the intersection of consciousness and technology, because I think when those two power one another, anything is possible. That's where you get a guy like a Steve Jobs or like these huge steps forward in human consciousness. So yeah, I wanted to start my own little tiny pocket of that. So I wanted to start teaching people to meditate, and I'm lucky to do some of that work with Good Life Project. And I do that with the company I work for. I launched the meditation program. But with the Pause, I just wanted to give people an open kind of classroom to show up, and we practice together. It's a way for me to practice my guided meditations, but also to really connect people. And I just finished my 12th week this week of doing it, and it's really profound that you could use technology to not do what we normally do, which is just detach and distract ourselves and to not make eye contact with human beings. But to use it to really connect at a soul level. They listen to my voice the same way they listen to it now through a podcast, same headset, but we go on a journey together spiritually, just using the technology to connect us.
And anybody can join you. Right?
Yeah, it's free. It's open source. It's at thisepiclife.com/the pause. And there's a link in there. It clicks. It's one click, and you join the classroom every Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern. So it's pretty early for you West Coasters. It's 6 a.m. But Alice has joined us a couple times at 6 in the morning. I know it's early, but we do 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute thing, and then I always record it, and I edit it and kind of polish it into a guided meditation that I release in a few different places. But yeah, the live thing is fun because it, as you know, like having these conversations, it forces you to be very present, be very, in the moment.
Right. Right. And I can't tell you the number of people that have mentioned on my shows Insight Timer, mm-hmm. and you're out there on Insight Timer, right?
Yeah, I love Insight Timer, and it's a tool that I've always used, and I've hipped other people to when they're getting their practice started. And on a whim, one of my listeners in Germany said, I would love if you had these in the Insight Timer app. And I was like, I'm just going to do this today. So I put them all in Insight Timer, and they've been really catching on. All of a sudden you wake up one morning after posting it, and there's a few thousand people listening to it and offering feedback and, ways to get better, and, just like a lot of beautiful comments. I love Insight Timer because it's just a very engaged community. It's like for meditators.
Well, and it's easy.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
Just, hey, it's 6 o'clock. And by the way, I love that time much better than 9 o'clock for meditation. So we're lucky.
From your lips to God's ears, Angie, because, like a lot of West Coasters, in case you didn't know, there are some, I don't want to say flakier people, but there are people that like to sleep in out there. And all my West Coast people was like, can you just offer one a little bit later? But I can't offer it at noon my time.
Oh, just get those people up. Not all of us sleep till noon.
I hear you. That's what we got to do. Get them up.
get them up. They need to be up anyway.
Yeah.
Or they have to go on Insight Timer. So
yeah, that was the point. I put them out there on demand for people, so they could, get it in whatever the way they need to get the medicine. I want to get out of the way of, the delivery mode, but, the live thing, it's important. I mean, I have a growing group of people that show up live every week. And what the best part about it is it is from people from all over the world. There's France, UK, just seeing these human beings, seeing their faces on the screen, kind of glowing in the meditation. It's magical. It's something different than, what I've kind of experienced with those programs online.
Wait, I forgot about this Zoom part. So 6 a.m. I have to be on a camera. Gotta have to think about that.
You don't have to. You could unshare. You could unshare your camera. There's no, it's a judgment-free, easy.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, but people do weird out about that. It's like I still have to. I wake up a few hours before that, get my long meditation in. Have the luxury of taking a shower, trying to be camera ready. But I know that people roll out of bed and just do it. But like my friend Zabi, who lives on the West Coast, I always talk to her about her hair is amazing when she rolls out of bed to meditate with us every Thursday. And I always tell her it reminds me of the Tree of Souls from Avatar, because it's just like this big, crazy, spiritual, gnarly tree. But she doesn't care. She's like, this is how I'm showing up, and I love it.
Good. Do you ever get scared when you're starting any of these new things?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part and parcel with it, is that I'm getting more comfortable every day with, and I read Jonathan Field's book, my good friend, Uncertainty, a few years ago, and his whole idea about leaning into uncertainty, I find that as life keeps speeding up and as I become more integral to different organizations I'm a part of or communities that I'm part of or help organize, that you have less and less time to prepare for things, and you just have to get comfortable with that. I used to really resist that because I'm a perfectionist type AA Virgo, insane person that way. But releasing that idea of perfection and knowing that perfection it only exists in the moment, and the degree that you're in the moment, that's when life can feel perfect. So the nerves are always there. The edge is the same as if I walk out on stage and play a show for people and I don't feel like I fully know the songs yet. But when you have muscle memory, when you've been doing this since you were a kid, when you live these teachings or try to rock your example, the words kind of show up, and that's always the surprise. Susan Piver, I got to name check her again because we had this amazing conversation where she's at this part of her practice. She's a Shambhala Buddhist where she's reached this stage called stupefaction. Did she mention this last week?
No, she didn't.
Yeah, stupefaction's amazing because Susan Piver is one of those people where I compare her to a 80s hair metal guitar shredder, because 80s hair metal guitar shredders, they have numerous moves, like these canned moves. They have the deep lunge, the tongue out of the mouth, like the finger tapping solo. And then they have this one move. It's my favorite move. It's when they look at their hands like they're surprised how hard they are rocking. Like they're like, wow, I just work here, and like the notes are just shredding, and they're looking at their hands and they're looking at the audience with this like look of stupefaction. But that's how Susan Piver comes across. When she tells a story, she's as surprised that she lived it as you are, and it's a very genuine thing. It's not like something you can contrive. But I've noticed that ever since I had this conversation with her, I've seen it just showing up more in my experience, where the nerves are there, I roll, I get started, and then all of a sudden it shows up better than I had planned on, thank God, usually. And sometimes it has curveballs or whatever. But to me, that's the divine aspect of it. That's like wow, I love the work I get to do because I'm surprised of this. I'm trying to meditate too at the same time. I'm not just trying to guide the people. And when the meditation is good, I'm just happy to be there too. So if I'm just helping create the container for it, that's a good day.
Yeah, we're learning something new about perfection, like really on two sides of the hand. Like one side, there is no perfection. On the other side, everything is perfect as it manifests, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think the eternal pursuit is not perfection, it's improvement. And we could only improve from where we are. And the only true perfection exists in God, Jah, Yah, like Allah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call Goddess. But the human aspect gets so turned sideways on that pursuit of perfection. I always use Brene Brown's quote. I think it's one of my favorites, is that perfection is a 10-ton shield we think is going to protect us, but it's more like just keeping you from being seen. And I was one of those musicians that slaved away for years in a dark room trying to perfect a record that when it came out, I was not into it because it was overly produced, you know. And I learned powerful things about perfection, and that the best thing we could do to be quote unquote perfect, or to fool people into thinking we have it together, is to just show up and be our damn selves, you know, not to like stay back and primp a little bit more and, you know, tighten all the corners and crisp lines or whatever, but it's just to show up and be open, like hearts open, antenna up. And that's what people, you know, that's what people want and need. You know, they want you to be real.
Be real. And, you know, what if the number one goal that we're all here for is expression, like just full expression?
Yeah. Yeah.
In whatever form it is. I mean, all of us, you know, we don't want to be silly about it, but if we withhold all those things until they're perfect, which many, many people do, then we're not stepping out there into the world with the gifts that we were given to bring out.
I think we all want to. Todd Henry is another friend. He has a great book called Die Empty, and it just sums up that trip I've been on with that, is that we are here to express, and as much as we can, as much as people can handle, as much as we can contribute, as much as we could serve others. And we're doing ourselves and everyone else a disservice when we stay small. And it's scary. It scares the crap out of you. And people assume, because I've been a performer since I was a kid, or, you know, a raging extrovert at times, that it's easier for me because, you know, like that's how I'm wired or whatever. But everybody at some point has to overcome those hurdles of, you know, not wanting to freak the people out around you, that you're so, that you've been honing this set of talents. You know, like earlier today, I found this Funky Friday video I produced last year, and I know you shared it on Facebook, Angie, and I appreciated that. But it was like, when I started doing those videos, it gets in your head thinking that you're making this like crazy selfie, like 3-camera video shoot of you playing all these instruments. And, you know, who the hell are you to do this, you know? And do you look awkwardly at the camera? Do you smile? Do you be yourself? So it was a great lesson in terms of overcoming that rapidly, because I was producing them every single week. So I would have to learn the song, practice the song, meditate for an hour, and then just roll tape and hope for the best. But when you're editing it, you could tell when you're in your head and staying small or holding back, or you could tell when you're trying to let your full light come through. And my favorite ones, like the one that I shared around today, are the ones where I'm just unapologetically being who the hell I am, trying to express all the talents that I sacrificed my social life for as a child to develop these things. So why would I hold back from showing that light, you know? And people, in my experience, people need more and more of that kind of push out of the nest. They need permission to glow in the dark. And I think the more that I'm able to buck up and give myself that permission, and we have so many great examples. I mean, anybody who's contributed, like even from the crazy side, like Howard Stern is an amazing example. Eminem is an amazing example. People that just let it rip with no filter. I'm not saying everything that comes out of their mouths is always, you know, great, but I am saying that it gives more and more people permission to attempt being that fuller expression of themselves.
Well, and they are making a difference. Yeah. Right? They're making a difference to a specific subculture of people, or all of us maybe, that they're here to speak to. Yeah, they're creating impact, you know, and I think that's, you know, my program, I have a program about impact, and that's a real cornerstone piece of it is audacity. You know, like confidence gets you out of bed in the morning, you know, and confidence can get you, you know, certain things, but audacity is what changes the world, you know, being just fearless in that level of expression. And I'm not saying it has to go to a raw level or be crude or be, you know, nothing like that. But I would say people like Paramahansa Yogananda traveling the country as a young Swami in the 20s,
when they had never seen a Swami before in real life, drawing crowds of 6,000 people, 8,000 people, initiating them into yoga. I would say that takes some audacity. That takes some, some self-knowledge and belief. But, I just think about how better the world would be if, a percentage of us were showing up with more of that.
Well, I think more and more of us are.
Yeah.
And as evidenced by what we see at Good Life Project and at your camp experience, which we'll talk about in a few moments, and what we see at WDS and places like Wisdom 2.0 and a conference that I went to a few years ago, the Aliyah Summer Institute, which is a Shambhala-based conference about all of these things. And maybe they've been going on for 100 years, but to me it seems like there's more of it.
There's a quickening. I feel like that wave of consciousness is kind of cresting in some ways. Like you can't go even in the business press now without seeing the word meditation, like on a few different pages. You hear it in so many different podcasts for human performance, everything else. I mean, I feel part of me wants to, I don't want to say capitalize on it in like the material sense, but to use it to amplify my voice, because I do want to be a messenger for that work. It saved my life. If I could help other people get through that stuff, that's the best path. But yeah, these conferences, seeing, that's why it's so inspiring to get around those people in a real live environment and feel that wave, moving. It's powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you said it saved your life. Can we go back and talk about that a little bit? Why did your life need saving?
Yeah, so I have my manifesto on my site. I documented my kind of hero's journey, but I was a 26-year-old kid, 14 years ago now almost. Wow, 13 years. And I almost died of stress-related illness. I had a moment in my beige, depressing cubicle where I didn't remember if the person had called me or if I called the person on the phone. I didn't know my coworkers' names, and looked like I was having an aneurysm, and ended up in the ER with a spinal tap in my back and a CT scan, and I almost died under the anesthetic. And when I came out of that, I just started getting very radically honest with myself and my young wife, and trying to integrate these different things, finally getting on the path of integration of how to be a musician and a confident husband and dad and a dependable coworker, and not be the cliche, jaded, pissed off coworker that has a band at night and, hanging with other women while his wife's home and he's at the studio. It really it was like that reckoning that got me on the path. And then the path, how I describe it is it was a long road of personal development. And then where the personal development path ends, the spiritual path kind of begins. And, it all kind of led me towards meditation. And I've been meditating for 12 years, pretty seriously in the last three years or so, and becoming a Kriyaban yogi through Self-Realization Fellowship. I mean, it's about a 60 to 90 minute meditation vow you take to get through the techniques each day. And it just it transforms my life more and more and more. And so when I'm on staff for Good Life Project or I'm leading a company training, I always plant the seeds of, if you want to accelerate, you have to slow down to speed up. You have to get very mindful. You have to practice sitting in silence with yourself before anybody. You have to be comfortable sitting in silence with yourself before other people will be comfortable sitting with you. And I would attribute that to saving my life, most definitely.
So let's just go back to I have so many questions about what you just said in a short period of time, but just go back to what you said about when personal development ends, spiritual development begins, and how do we know when those two things are different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me it was getting into all like the cornerstone personal development guides. I love Tony Robbins. I love Brian Tracy. I love Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and realizing that all of their work, the most valuable aspects of their work, are grounded in universal, timeless truths. Wayne Dyer, of course, will say the same thing. And as I started studying all of those people, because I'm an integrationist, putting them, dashboarding all of my results, I get obsessed about different programs, and I put all my worksheets together and figure out what the hell it all means. I try to trace back to the timeless truths, and the self-reflection piece is probably the biggest cornerstone of all leadership, conscious leadership, self-leadership, self-management. I mean, if you don't have reflection and you aren't getting feedback, you have nothing. You have yourself and your crazy-ass thoughts to keep leading you astray, probably further astray. But that reflection piece kept coming up over and over and over. So I just started going further down that path and realizing, like, oh, it's about 15 minutes of silence each day. Oh, it's about, picking, choosing maybe the Buddhist path or the yogic path. And I had friends on both, and realizing that I had a predisposition to being a yogi because of the direct experience aspect and the rigor of that. And, so it just kind of, I'd say the personal development stuff, I still get a lot out of it. I still learn things from it. However, it's nowhere near the same playing field as 60 to 90 minutes of meditation over the course of a year, over the course of a lifetime eventually, can teach you. Because we're here to learn at the deepest core of ourselves, and that's kind of the unlock key, is that ability to focus within. So I hope I answered the question there, but those two are so intertwined for me. But the personal development path also becomes very repetitive at a certain point. Everybody's kind of repackaging the same universal truths. The spiritual stuff is like the 1,000-petaled lotus that just keeps opening. And then there's another labyrinth within a conundrum down at the end of a maze. It is so vast. Mm-hmm. And, so I think that once you get started on that, and all of us are to some degree. Like, we go to church as kids, we meet spiritual people, we're influenced by spiritual people, we feel spiritual, we want to be spiritual. But I differentiated very early on between being religious, which I definitely wasn't, and being spiritual, which I always felt I was. And the personal development path prepared me for the direct practice of spirituality, which to me in the past 3 years especially has given me very tangible, undeniable results.
For example,
walking into an office situation, sitting in my office right now and realizing this is the vision and the manifestation that I always carried around with me for years. Being a guest in hotels that I used to squat in the lobby of to journal when I had zero money. And it's not on the material side. It's on just like catching up with your projected experience. Projecting your experience during meditation and then showing up and walking through the direct, realistic, the reality, the manifestation of it, and having God or Guru or whoever that force is say, look, this is what we talked about months ago, aspects of that, hanging with my heroes, befriending my heroes, meditating with people that I would have just killed to have time to listen to their music, but teaching them to meditate. Feeling connected with my grandfather who left his body 8 years ago, but feeling his presence in my spine, feeling his vision in my gaze, feeling that deep sense of connection. That's what it is for me. It's a very personal thing, but it's kind of like that wink to the universe that you're being seen and being heard, and you're in the right place at the right time. All the little serendipity moments. It's that.
Just want to take a moment. That's such a rich answer. I love it. And I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the synchronicity of my own experience. I interviewed, the last interview I did, which is coming out on Monday, was Michael Lennox, Dr. Michael Lennox in Hollywood, and his prescription, what he was talking about is what you just described happening in your own life, creating a vision, being silent, spending time every day, saying prayer, talking about or thinking about being silent in your own practice about where you're going, and not stressing about the details of it, because that's not what gets you there. It's not a linear thing. And you just expressed exactly how that happened in your life. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's, I think what I grapple with, and what most people grapple with, is when to allow and when to push. And
isn't that hard?
and we are such, we're trained to be achievers, and I'm no different. I think what got me my skill levels at a young age was just that relentless pursuit of trying for mastery. But mastery really is part and parcel with allowing too, and allowing the divine to work through you as a vehicle or a channel. And it is a very hard thing for me. And I think that that's another way that meditation helps kind of smooth my edges, is that it just allows me to express, to allow the unfolding versus just constantly feeling like you have to push every boulder up every hill. It's a challenge.
It's refreshing to know that we don't have to push every boulder uphill.
Right?
I remember,
yeah,
I remember using that exact phrase when I left my corporate job, which had been relatively successful, and going, I'm done pushing boulders up hills. And I don't know what's next, but this is not it.
Yeah. I know. You provide a lot of encouragement, because I work a corporate job, and I happen to love the company I work for. We win awards for culture, and it's a very special place, happy place. But there's always that bigger calling of, your life's work, and you never know exactly when to let go or when to jump. But I think it's very closely tied to the allowing, and all my talks with my wife of like, is it time? Is it time? Is it time? And my wife always pulls me back to center, because she's much more grounded. She's not Peter Pan. She keeps the trains rolling on time. And she'll say, look at what is working for you right now. And the corporate stuff is a big part of it. So she's like, you would be doing yourself a disservice to treat that as a boulder when actually it's, a different set of wings.
And you love it.
And I love it, yeah. And I guess that's how you know. At the end of the day, if you don't love it, you're probably pushing too hard. Personally,
I think joy has such a big factor in it all.
Yeah, like those days where I spontaneously break into dance, those are good days to take action. The days where you're hunched over your computer, just pissed off and bitter, probably not. You're probably not going to take right action. You'll probably take action for action's sake. Or
because you're pissed off, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
Which is never a good time to make a decision.
Something must happen. Nobody's going to do it other than me.
Right. I want to go back to what you were talking about before. You mentioned allowing the divine to come through you. Can I ask you what, in very specific terms, what are your spiritual beliefs?
Yeah, so my spiritual beliefs are, expanding every day, because I had a TV evangelist as a kid kind of ruin me on organized religion. It was like all fire and brimstone, guilt, shame, crap. And now I study the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, which was really his mission, was to unite the essential kind of foundational aspects of original Christianity and original Hinduism. So on my altar, I'm looking at my altar right now, it's Jesus Christ, it's Bhagavan Krishna, who is the Christ of Hinduism. It's and then a lineage of gurus that end with Paramahansa Yogananda. So my teachings are based on, or my lessons and what I believe is based on that there is one omnipresent, omniscient God, and it has two aspects. It has the omniscient Father and the Divine Mother, which I love that aspect of Hinduism because I'm a feminist, and I don't always assume that God's a dude. But I believe is that we are here to prime ourselves and to open ourselves up to more divine aspects, align our consciousness with divine consciousness. And we do that through right living, giving up some of those terrible habits that I loved so much in my youth. I'm constantly pruning habits because they kind of make you a clearer vessel to experience some of that divinity. And by the way, and if I sound like it, I feel like I'm maybe 2 baby steps into the path. When you meet with monks are 20 times more humble than me. They'll say, I feel like I'm just a baby, and they've been doing it for 30 years, devoting their whole life to it. But yeah, I just didn't want to put it out there that I feel like I'm making tons of progress. I feel like I'm just I'm living my beliefs, I'm practicing my beliefs, and they seem to be working for me so far.
I just had an interesting conversation with one of my colleagues yesterday about this exact topic. Like, we're all somewhere at the beginning of our paths and can keep going as long as we so choose in our lifetime. And, when is the right time to be a leader? And the time is now, right? The time is always now to be a leader. You don't have to have ascension or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah, you got to be the change, sucker. Yeah.
It goes back to our discussion of expression and perfection before, but thank you for saying that. I don't think any of us thought that you were saying that you were levitating on the other side there, or maybe you are.
I wish I could say I was, like that'll be a good day. That'll be a good, selfie or whatever. No.
Call me back that day if you would.
Yeah. But where I think about where I have pride in my progress is when I think about the damaged, stressed, disintegrated person I had become when I was 26. And the long build, the slow build it takes to become a more refined, capable man. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but I'm saying that I have been willing to prune a lot of my habits: booze, porn addiction, coffee, stress, impatience. I'm working on impatience right now. There's always some new giant-ass dragon to slay, and I'm willing to go as far as it takes to get to samadhi, which is the ecstatic state. That could take a lifetime, and maybe this isn't the lifetime for me to get there, but I do know that when I sit in lotus pose, I absolutely felt like I did it prior to this lifetime. It feels not eerily, but comfortingly familiar.
Are you saying you never drink coffee, never drink alcohol, never watch porn, never any of those things in your past?
Yeah. I manage abstinence way better than moderation. So yes, I flip the switch and then it's gone forever. However, caffeine I gave up last year, and I will occasionally drink like a yerba mate tea or something that has, like occasionally if I travel and I'm really ragged, I might treat myself to like a half-calf latte or something. But anymore, I'm realizing that once it becomes an obstacle to your meditation and it becomes like a filter, you just can't have it anymore. That's my own experience. I mean, there's plenty of yogis that are able to manage those things to much more successful degrees than I ever was, but my personality was kind of all or nothing, and I knew if I didn't quit booze by my own volition in my 30s, I'd probably need rehab in my 40s. So I quit 3 years ago. I just made a decision, and I stuck with it, and I don't miss it at all, honestly. I pour people drinks, I toast them, I sniff, but it has nothing for me.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that you had gotten to this point when you were 26, this man that was disjointed and unintegrated? Were there things that happened to you prior to that in your life? Or
yeah, other than the wanting to live in fast forward, high definition at top volume all the time, that's, how teenage males tend to grow up. I was in bands. I played 300 shows a year. By the time I was 19, I was touring all over the country. I got to experience some pretty exciting things, and I just wanted the whole party, the whole thing to keep going. And I never had a crazy addiction with drugs and alcohol, but it was always around. And the porn thing was more just like just being exposed to it at too young of an age by a babysitter, and having this kind of shame shell wrapped around it. And then when it started proliferating all over the internet, when that started coming online and becoming available for free everywhere, it presents a big problem, and it's like, I know it's a major problem for a lot of guys and a lot of kids. It's terrifying. So like by the time I was 26, I had, and I'm coming full circle because I'm a Virgo 2 Enigma, I had built walls within walls within walls to hide all the things I was ashamed of: being stoned, sitting in traffic, being full of self-loathing, hating working so hard on the music that I hated to listen to, feeling like a crap. So it was kind of that point of reckoning of, hey, buddy, lighten up. There's a better way. Let's get started. So it feels heavy in retrospect compared to where I ended up. But honestly, I was a very, very normal 26-year-old man in America. I was not a, crazy damage. I was working a job. I was paying the bills. I was a married guy. I was doing my thing, but, you know, I was nowhere near my potential. And
someone said, "Hey, stop watching that porn. Just read this autobiography of a yogi, and life will change."
Well, that was much more down the road. I had to do baby steps to even get to people recommending. I was nowhere near in vibrational proximity to the autobiography at that point, or to any of the other stuff I got into, Abraham Hicks, like Tony Robbins, like that whole path of personal and spiritual development. I had to start with, let me talk to my wife about how messed up I am. Let me talk to a therapist. Let me start running. Let me start eating stuff other than total garbage. Let me, just start getting more honest with myself. And, you know, a few years later, I start doing Tony Robbins and running marathons. And then, you know, a few years after that, I start, you know, working in line with my passion. So I love my job. And and then over 16 years of marriage now, I'm starting to figure out how to be a better husband. I mean, it depends on the day, depends on the weather, but I'm trying. I'm doing a decent job. But yeah, and then years later, it's somebody saying, "Hey, check out the autobiography." And then, you know, another 8 people or so say, "You should really read this. This is your book." And then, you know, that was the first time I read it, and I've read it about 11 times since, because I was preparing myself for the path. And so to answer your question in a very long way is that all of that, our darkness prepares us to glow in the dark, you know, and that I had to go through that hero's journey to get to the point where I was even ready to consider what it's like to sit for 2 minutes, let alone 5, let alone 10, let alone 60 or 90 or 3 hours or 6 hours on Christmas. You cannot, you know, train for a marathon and run out your door the first day and try to run 5 miles. You'll hurt yourself and not run again. But you could walk a block, walk 2 blocks, run 3 blocks. So that's what my journey's been. It's just trying to prepare myself to get better, you know.
I love it. I love that you presented it that way, because it's like vibrational steps. Like transformation you don't go from one place to the other.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah. And like sometimes when I'm around family that's known me for a long time, I always try to let them know that I'm still the same goofball, crazy Casey that they've always known. Because sometimes it can be intimidating when you're around people that are so hell-bent on just trying to be better. And I'm not trying to be better than anybody else by any measure. I never think that. I'm just trying to be a better version of myself that I want to spend time with. And you have to sometimes you have to ease people into that situation, you know. Like it could be jarring for some people when they realize, like, "What do you mean you quit drinking?" I'm like, "Yeah, 3 years ago I just had." And they're like, "That means you won't drink a beer?" You could drink a beer, you know. You could eat a steak. You could eat this pork. And I'm like, I don't do any of that stuff, you know. It's just it's a journey.
Yeah, not everybody's on the earth this time to make the same kind of transformation. Some people are going to go an inch, some are going to go a mile. And that reconciliation that you're talking about is a difficult one when you're on a big path.
Yeah, totally. And you still have all your residual filthy habits. Like, you know, for me, it's soft serve from Dairy Queen. If I drive by a Dairy Queen, I'll like unconsciously veer into the drive-through and get a cone and eat it in filthy secrecy in my car. And I love it because it makes me human and it's so damn tasty. And, you know.
Thank goodness there are lots of Dairy Queens.
Yeah, there's like 7,000 of them, so it's a bad habit, as you can imagine. But everybody has those, you know, and everybody's working on themselves. And there's no, you know, nobody's free from the work we have to do on ourselves in this lifetime. That's the good news and the opportunity, you know.
Right. So if someone tells you that they don't have anything like that, we can't believe them, right?
Oh yeah, like I kicked all those problems years ago. Like everything's peach. Like how everybody merchandises their perfection on their Facebook feed. It's like, brother, please. You know, like let's take a look under the hood, you know, and
or that may be true, but I know you got something else over there.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I try to put people at ease too by showing all my, you know, my blunders and my face palming fails. You know, if I fail as a parent, I have 3 kids, and when I lose it and resort to, you know, some of the loud yelling that I grew up with, I'm honest about it because I'm trying to purge that too, you know, and I'm trying to shine a light on it that it's okay to be an idiot at times or to have a short fuse, but it's not okay to remain unaware about it.
Oh my gosh, it's so helpful. I'm glad that you said that, but it's so helpful to those around us. Like one time I yelled at my daughter, and it was I think it was on Halloween last year, and we were walking around trick-or-treating, and I said to some other parents that were there that I had yelled at my daughter, and they were, you know, looking at me like, even you yell at your kids? Like, yeah. Oh yeah, like I feel horrible, but like, I'm so glad you said that because, you know, everybody yells at their kids once in a while.
Yeah.
Like we strive not to do that, but it happens. It's hard to be a parent some days.
Oh my gosh, especially when everyone's talking at you all at once and there's 3 of them and you're outnumbered and oh my God, don't get me started. I'm getting stressed out now, Angie. No, I love them to death.
Just take a breath. Focus on your breath.
Yeah.
Pull out your insight timer.
Yeah.
Listen to Casey. He's on there.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, do you know what your life purpose is?
Do I know what my life purpose? I'm finding it out. I'm finding it out more every day, and I think it's tied to being a messenger. You know, I'm not a guru. The gurus are very serious in my teachings. They are direct conduits to the divine. And I am a messenger for my guru, certainly, just to hit people to not just our branch and study of meditation, but the innumerable benefits of having a practice. So I'm a messenger for that. I'm a messenger for showing people what's possible by living an integrated life, the pursuit of what it means to be a good dad and still rock some instruments and still be, you know, who you are in the world. But yeah, that's my purpose, is to just try to live my example and be comfortable with it.
Very nice. Thank you. Can I ask you a lightning round of short yes or no questions?
Absolutely.
Do you think passion and purpose are the same things?
Passion and purpose are the same things. No, I think purpose is kind of like the GPS coordinates, and I think passion is more like the fuel.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, or if we want to take the Back to the Future analogy, the passion would be more like the flux capacitor or the 1.21 gigawatts to power it, and the purpose is the dashboard of what date we're going to go to.
I love it. Do you think that everybody has a life purpose?
I do, and I just think that some people are more willing than others to uncover it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how important is following your joy and igniting your life purpose? I'd say, wow. So I'd say 10 on the joy, because we have to suck out every little drop of nectar that we can. That's the purpose of life, is to find that joy. The life's purpose thing is a challenge for me, honestly, because there's, you know, when we're working jobs and all this, we don't always know that we're necessarily living the purpose, quote unquote, in the moment. So we have to constantly pull the lens back. So I would say the life purpose thing I'd put lower, like an 8, but I'd put joy at 10. Okay. Did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose, and do you think somebody needs to quit? That's such a great question. Have you been talking to my wife? Not yet. Yeah. No, I don't think that people need to quit. I think that you can create something beautiful where you are. But it's a different story entirely if you're in a toxic culture and people aren't receptive to, you know, what you're here to do. But my experience is that you don't need to quit. I think it's reckless to teach people that they have to quit. But in some cases, I have quit many bands with terrible cultures and terrible music. I've quit many companies with, you know, terrible cultures and terrible music. But I don't necessarily think that quitting is necessary. Whenever I feel like I want to quit, I realize I'm being my Enneagram 1 and I'm disintegrated because it feels like a black and white pass or fail choice versus the third option. And the third option is usually the more divinely guided option, which is how do we make something amazing here with what we're working with currently.
Great. What brings you great joy?
Other than talking to Angie on a podcast?
I'm so honored.
I know. What brings me great joy? Gosh, my kids laughing, their eyes sparkling, just romping around like a child with my kids, getting giant rooms of people to act like children, meditating. Yeah, just there's a delayed reaction when you get a good meditation in on a given morning. Some point in the day, you'll experience this passing wave of joy, and it comes in really random spots where you do want to break into dance, or you feel like this breeze, and you just become very aware. And those are my moments. Those are my moments of joy.
Delicious. If you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I'd probably go into I'd probably build a consultancy with a team around taking meditation into companies at a much faster rate than I'm able to do on my own right now. I'd probably take my family out on the road and just tour the world and pull the kids out of school so we all learn together just out in the world. Yeah, I think that would be it. And then the rest I would invest and save and probably dedicate or donate a vast majority of it to SRF.
Have you ever met Chade Mentang?
Mm-mm.
The Chief Happiness Officer at Google. I think you would really enjoy.
I always forget his name. Yeah, he wrote Search Inside Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would love to meet him. I'm going to Wisdom 2.0 in New York here in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, great. It's very, very interesting guy, full of joy.
Oh, sure.
And I just have to say, I enjoy your woo. You have some woo there, right, from StrengthsFinder?
I think I might have a little woo under the hood. We'll see.
So just in closing, there's so many more things to talk with you about. We didn't get to talk about Camp GLP. Do you want to say anything quickly about that?
Yeah, well, just Camp GLP, we run it at the end of August. It's running August 26th, 27th, upstate New York, 90 minutes outside of Manhattan, and it's 350 people from all over the world coming together around entrepreneurship and how to live a good life, and we do romp around like children, and it's I get to be the chief spirit officer for that, so I am like the MC / entertainer / meditation guide, and it's just it's a blast. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing a lot of friends there.
And it's full. Is it full for this year?
No. There's still some slots available for it. We have room for up to 450. We did 250 last year, and we're considerably bigger this year, but we'll end up over 4, I'm sure.
Yeah. And let's just tell folks how they can find out more information about that.
Yeah, that's goodlifeproject.com/camp.
Perfect. Tell me, what should listeners learn from your life so far?
From my life, that if I can change, this is going to sound like a bad Hollywood pep talk, but if I can change, you can change, we all can change. No, but it is true, is that if this crazy ass guy from the suburbs of Ohio can figure some of this stuff out and put it into practice for not only my own improvement, but for the improvement of a lot of people around me, I encourage anyone to figure out their own thing and to do the same. Just on whatever their terms are, whatever their path is, that you have to be committed and open to the reality that you can change. When people are shut off from that possibility, they become an older version of the scared idiot they were in high school. They don't think they can change. But I'm more convinced than ever that I can change because I have to, frankly. Yeah.
Why? Why do you have to?
Just because the path requires it.
So if our conversation or what you just said about what listeners should learn from your life created a spark in someone, and they're not ready to call and work with you yet, or call and work with me yet, what's one little resource that you would tell them? Where could they start?
Where could I start? I would say start with my, like for me personally, I created a workbook of integration exercises that if I would have been able to hand that to myself as an 18-year-old, it would have saved me from almost dying. I would start with that kind of stuff. I would start with aligning your personal mission with your highest virtues. That's what's covered in my workbook. That's at my site, thisepiclife.com/manifesto. That is the entry point. And, you know, it's I try to put stuff out, like everything I would have killed to know that would have saved me a lot of pain. You know, start there. Yeah.
Don't do what I do. Do what I say.
Yeah. Or, you know, and not even what I say.
Or do what I did.
Yeah, like let me just show you what worked for me. Yeah.
All right. What's the best way for people to connect with you and get more of you?
Yeah, definitely on my site, thisepiclife.com. Getting ready to relaunch it, and I'm launching my program, Your Signature Impact. I'm launching that this fall. So it's going to be a big back half of the year. I got to get it all done so I could kick it in Encinitas with my family quietly with no technology. But yeah, that's the place to find me, thisepiclife.com.
And your program that's coming out in the fall, just tell us a little bit about that quickly.
Yeah, for sure. It's for mostly solo entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, teachers, and it's how to get people to speak, write, and teach their truth. It's kind of been what's accelerated my progress over the last 3 years was becoming Jonathan's right-hand man for Good Life Project, being able to teach others about my path and, you know, how to benefit themselves. And I'm a curriculum designer by trade, so I take my learning design and worksheet development, all that shit really, really, really seriously. So yeah, that course is an accelerator course for how to get people to speak, write, and teach their truth and get paid while they do it.
Wonderful. Anything you want to say that we didn't get to today?
I think we covered a lot of ground, Angie. So I do expect an invitation for part 2 because we have more to cover, I'm sure. I love talking to you. You were right. You told me right before. You're like, people are surprised how deep these things go, and I wasn't surprised. You know, I had never ever publicly mentioned porn addiction before.
I think that's a first on this show. So we'll try to send you a little medal or something.
Yeah, totally.
But we have to speak our truth, right? We have to speak our truth because there's somebody out there that's watching porn today going, yep, time for me to turn this off and move on.
Yeah, there's got to be more to life than this. Yeah.
That's right. Well, thank you for your candor and your honesty. It's my pleasure to have you here. I know you've got someplace else to go today and 3 wonderful children waiting for you.
Yeah, I'm ready for the weekend. Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have been listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast with me, Angie Swartz, and my wonderful guest today, KC, Kristoffer Carter. If you like what you heard, please go find out more about Kristoffer today at his website, which he mentioned. And if you'd like to work with me, you can find more information about me at lifepurposeadvisor.com. And we will see you next time.